Hi everyone, it's Sarah here. Welcome to my channel, Your True Self. And today I am going to be talking about some big events that I went to yesterday, which have really reached me and made me think. And so I wanted to tell you about them. And I'm recording quite early in the morning because I wanted to get it all out before it disappeared into my thoughts about other stuff. So there were two events that I went to yesterday, which were part of the Norfolk and Norwich Festival, which is an amazing month-long festival in Norwich, which celebrates all different aspects of the arts, like music, books, poetry, theatre. Really good. And I went to two of the book events yesterday as part of the literature weekend. The first of which was a series called 5 by 15. I don't know if anyone's heard of that, but they've got a podcast, and it's the concept of 5 different speakers speaking for 15 minutes each without a script on a topic of their choice. And that was my first event yesterday. So there were 3 speakers, then a 15-minute break, and then 2 more speakers. And they all just had to stand there and talk without any kind of written prompts. So it was really, really interesting what they were going to say. And I wanted to talk briefly about those speakers, particularly the things which reached me most. And then I went on to see another talk for an hour with Johan, which was called Is Everything We Know About Depression Wrong? And this talk was absolutely brilliant. So I really want to talk about that as well. So if I go back to the 5 by 15 minute talks first. So the first talk was Suzanne, which is the reason that I bought the ticket, because as you may remember, I reviewed her book, It's All in Your Head, one of the first videos that I did. And she was talking about her second book, which is about piecing together the mysteries of neurology. And she gave a talk about 2 of her patients who have very, very bizarre epileptic seizures, which people, they've basically ruined their lives with these seizures because they're so extreme. And she talked about how we've used epilepsy to map out the brain in history and to try and work out which bits of the brain do what. So that was a very interesting talk. And she talked about how when you go to medical school, you learn all the facts. And then when you start working as a doctor, you have to actually learn about people, and that people aren't facts, and how conditions affect them and their lives. So that was interesting. The second speaker was Hartnell, and he was an academic who specialises in medieval medicine and combines medieval artwork with what we know about how they thought about medicine at the time. So he gave a really diverse talk. He put up a lot of images and talked briefly about the images, and so I have to say I didn't have a huge take-home message. It was interesting, but I didn't have a huge take-home message from that one, so I'm not going to dwell on it more. The third speaker was Clarke, and she has a book called Your Life in My Hands, which is actually on my wish list at the moment to buy. And her talk was brilliant. So she is a palliative care doctor. She used to be a documentary filmmaker, and then she studied medicine, and now she works in palliative care. And she talked about how she'd witnessed when deaths go well, or when we do well to get people to have a good death, and when we fail, and usually because of how the NHS is working. And she talked about a really sad case about a man who died in a lift because he was having to be moved around to meet bed targets. And her story was very moving, and it was again about humanity and about how we need to all care for each other, and we need to remember people are people, and people aren't targets, and people aren't statistics, and they are, she wants them to be able to live their full life up until the day that they die. That was her goal as a palliative care doctor, and that was a really good talk. It made me nearly cry once, but it was really, really interesting. So I'm looking forward to reading her book for sure. The fourth talk was by Aarathi Prasad, and she has written a book about genetics, and she was writing about genetic anomalies, and her talk was focused on whether it was possible to have an immaculate conception, which is what there was an investigation about this in the 1950s or 60s, and there was a mother and daughter who claimed that the daughter had been born by immaculate conception. So that was quite an interesting talk, where she was just talking about genetics and whether this was technically possible, which was quite fun. And then the last talk was by a GP called Gavin, who has written a book called Shapeshifters about the way that our bodies change and different ways that we change our bodies, or different ways our bodies change naturally, from disease or from choice or from age. And so that was quite an interesting talk. But the ones that stayed with me the most were the Rachel Francis talk and the Suzanne Sullivan talk. The bit I really wanted to move on to was the talk I went to in the evening yesterday, which was by Johan Harry, Is Everything We Know About Depression Wrong? And this just really reached me, this talk. It was fantastic. Basically, he is a journalist who is only a tiny bit older than me, and he has achieved some amazing things in his career. So he has... he's a New York Times bestseller. He's got a film coming out. He's written in major newspapers. He's got 2 books. Anyway, he was a really, really down-to-earth, engaging speaker. And his story is that he spent a lot of time in his teens with depression, and he went to his doctor for the first time when he was about I think it was his late teens. And his doctor said, oh, yeah, I can explain this. Basically, you've just got an imbalance in the chemicals in your brain, and if you take these pills, you'll be fine. And he said that he accepted this because it gave him a reason for why he felt like this. And he started taking antidepressants. He felt better for some period of time, and then he felt worse again. So he went back to his doctor. He said, oh, it's fine. All you need is a bigger dose. And he ended up spending... years and years and years on the maximum dose of his antidepressant. And he said whilst it helped for a little while, he then soon slid back into depression again, and he thought, well, this isn't working. He wanted to figure out what is going on, so he started doing research, and his research took him, I think he said 40,000 miles around the world, speaking to all different communities, different leading experts on depression. And he's come up with a theory which has 9 reasons why we can be depressed in this day and age, because depression is massively on the increase. He said, which is what I felt, and I said in my last video, that he said every year on year, there's an increase in anxiety and depression, and it must be something, why is this happening? And his theory, he's written this book called Lost Connections. His theory is that we have become, from a tribal-based society who lived cooperatively, who engaged with each other, who helped each other, who cared about each other, to a very insular society where we all live on our own or with our own family. We don't often know the people who live near us. We don't interact with them. Everything in this day and age is about accumulating stuff, and not about the real things in life. Not about nature, not about community, not about living in cooperation with each other, and not belonging, not feeling like we belong, but feeling lonely. And he talked about this in a really engaging way for an hour, and the leading experts in the world were all coming up with the same stuff. They were all saying the same along these lines, and they were saying that the idea of saying, oh, it's just a chemical imbalance in your brain is completely ridiculous, and it can't be simplified. And that actually hasn't even really been a theory that has that has been corroborated at all. So this was a fantastic talk to go to, and I just feel, as a GP, as I said before, my hands feel so tied as to how to help people with depression, other than referring them for CBT or to give them medication. I really hardly isn't anything else I can offer within the confines of my job, which is one of my reasons of being frustrated. And he talks about other things like gardening projects and community projects and things that have had a really good success rate in this country and in other countries. And how I wanted to finish off today is I talked in my last video about the Reading Well scheme, and I did go to my library and it was really well displayed which books were in Reading Well, so I didn't even need the prescription sheet, I didn't need to ask for any help, it was really well displayed. And I chose 2 books from the young adult section, the shelf help section. So I chose this book here, which is called Can I Tell You About Eating Disorders, and this is aimed at teenagers, and there's quite a lot of it looks like it's sort of in a bit of a play form. There's quite a lot of pictures in here, and I really wanted to give that a try because I feel that eating disorders are very niche and quite hard to help people with, so I'm really interested to hear what they have to say about that one. And I also chose this book, which is called Blame My Brain, and it's basically a book about teenagers, the teenage brain, and their mental health, specifically to their age group. And then finally I ordered a book which somebody recommended to me, and I can't remember if it was somebody from my careers course or somebody from this channel. This book here, which has now come in, called The Nature Fix, and I'm really excited to get to this one. This is basically says from forest trails in Korea to islands in Finland to eucalyptus groves in California, Florence Williams investigates the science behind nature's positive effects on the brain. Delving into brand new research, she uncovers the powers of the natural world to improve health, promote reflection and innovation, and strengthen our relationships. As our modern lives shift dramatically indoors, these ideas and the answers they yield are more urgent than ever. And one of the points Johan Harry made was that we spend less time outdoors than maximum security prisoners, who have to get 70 minutes of outdoor time a day, and we get less than that, which was quite shocking. And I have to say, for me personally, when I've had times of difficulty in life, like I found after I'd had my first child, I sometimes felt quite low, and I found the one thing which always really helped me was to go outside and have a walk and get out into nature. That was really, really beneficial for me, and that was the start of a long journey for me, which I won't talk about here, otherwise this video will go on for about another 10 minutes. But basically I felt like dealing with being a mum for the first time really, I call it, kind of broke me open and opened my eyes to so many more things and so many more feelings and experiences and learning, and nature was key in that for me. So I really can't wait to read and review these books soon, and one of my next couple of videos will be about those books. So I'm going to sign off for now, and I hope you all have a lovely bank holiday weekend, and I will speak soon. Bye!